The member from Thornhill.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And my question is to the Minister of Finance. Last week, one rating agency gave Ontario a negative outlook, and another actually downgraded Ontario's credit rating, and I read that report. Moody's said, and I quote, "Expense growth targets appear particularly ambitious in light of growth in expenses averaging 7% annually in the 5 years to 2011-12. Funny, Minister, that line is almost a direct quote from me speaking in this House on numerous occasions about the unsustainability of your unchecked spending. Translation, you're making promises you can't keep, and you're writing checks you can't cash. We've been telling you that very thing for years. Now that Ontario is facing interest hikes that would make your latest budget obsolete, are you finally ready to listen?"
Thank you, Premier. Minister of Finance.
Speaker, the member opposite neglected to read down to the next paragraph, where Moody's also said that Moody's recognizes that the province has laid out an ambitious fiscal plan to return to fiscal balance. He also ignored the parts of Moody's report that said the following, that we have a very high level of debt affordability, a high degree of fiscal flexibility, a large and diversified economy, and a broad and productive tax base, Mr. Speaker. In fact, we have laid out a plan, Mr. Speaker, that all three agencies have in fact accepted and acknowledged the difficulties in achieving. They have called on this legislature to make it work, Mr. Speaker, to work together. One of the great risks out there, among others, is this legislature, Mr. Speaker. I ask the member opposite, do what the third party did, work with this government to get us back to balance, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Yes, you've laid out a plan, and no, we don't believe it. For years, we've been telling you to curb your spending, and months ago, we stood in this House and warned that if you didn't start paying attention, and if you don't get your financial house in order, Ontario will pay a high price for your incompetence. You didn't listen. You thought you knew better. You have proven that Liberals have great difficulty accepting a simple if-then logic statement. That's why we couldn't have any meaningful discussions with you. As you already know, are you now ready to admit that you should have listened to us while you had the chance?
Thank you. For Finance.
Mr. Speaker, let me quote a few others from outside of here. And here's a quote. The key message from the agencies late last year was that they wanted a clear and credible medium-term plan as to how the government would balance its finances. And the government did that, said Craig Alexander, chief economist at TD Bank. Another quote. We're inclined to view the budget plan and the government's initial progress on deficit reduction as sufficient to put off additional negative pressure on the province's credit rating for now. That's Warren Lovely of CIBC World Markets. Another quote, McGuinty must not deviate from the path set out in his budget, including curtailing labour costs. For the good of all Ontarians, the opposition ought not to act as stumbling blocks. That is a stumbling block on the other side, Mr. Speaker. They refuse to work with the government. They refuse to cooperate. Later today, the bells will continue to ring, Mr. Speaker. Let's make this minority parliament work.
Thank you. Your question, the member from Essex.